Greetings and welcome to 2021 and everybody's business. It's a new year. We have a new look here in our new studio, and we have a new sponsor. State Farm Insurance has agreed to help us bring this podcast to you. And so we couldn't do what we do here at the National Entrepreneur Center without our sponsors, and we couldn't have this podcast go on for very long without sponsors. So we are very appreciative of State Farm Insurance for their sponsorship of everybody's business here from the National Entrepreneur Center. So let me be the first one to say to you, Happy New Year! And Happy New Year to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for having me back.
You bet. We have the lovely and talented Rachel Madsen, who is one of our client experience specialists here at the National Entrepreneur Center. And I see, what's that?
In bold.
In bold. That's right. I see that you brought a friend along, maybe?
I did. It was given to me by a special someone. And
it's kind of a creepy clown, is what it looks like.
It is.
You are the recipient of the Creepy Clown Award.
I am. He doesn't haunt my thoughts, but he is just very memorable.
It's especially a little frightening when you walk in your office and see the creepy clown on your desk.
Yeah.
So, that award is given to someone who has done extraordinary work over the last month or the last week. And it's specifically creepy so that you are encouraged to find someone else on the staff that's doing good work and share that creepiness with them, right?
Yes, I must pass this on. It's going to haunt me every day.
And so it keeps us looking around to see who can we give the creepy clown to, because number one, that does get it out of our offices. So do you know why you got the Creepy Clown Award?
Well, when it was given to me, there was a few things that were mentioned, but I think it was the
being on the podcast.
I don't know why this slipped my brain. The holidays took it away.
The holidays will do that. But stepping outside your comfort zone.
Yes.
And being here as part of our crew here on Everybody's Business. So it's well deserved, and we're so happy to have you as part of our crew here on Everybody's Business.
No, thank you. Yes, the whole experience has been very different, but
very creepy, right?
But rewarding at the same time.
That's right.
So it's good to jump out.
And that's what I want to talk about with businesses today is the year of COVID is over. And so thankfully, 2020 is over. COVID will still be with us for a while. The effects of COVID will be with us for a long time. But it's also been a time that businesses had to step out of their comfort zone and take on new challenges. And so that's part of the entrepreneurial experience is saying, this is not quite what I had in mind, or this is a challenge that I didn't see coming, but then being willing to say, what am I going to do to overcome that challenge? And so sometimes that can be very challenging, emotionally, financially, physically, but ultimately, it's that kind of pivot, that kind of stepping outside of your comfort zone that can take you to the next level. And so you've been willing to step outside your comfort zone here. Have you ever had those experiences in other parts of your life?
Yes. Usually it starts at the beginning of every year when we do New Year's resolutions to lose weight, which, yes, that's on my list again. If anyone was wondering.
One of those, yes, okay, I can mark that down.
And a matter of fact, actually, I think in college, public speaking was always something I was very nervous about.
That's a big challenge for a lot of people.
Right. It's not really, in my head, I know everything I want to say, but then when I get on the spot sometimes, I'm kind of like, ooh, wait, it just lost. The holiday struck again. So.
Sometimes people say the fear of public speaking is right up there with death, and so overcoming your fear a lot of times is a simple way to say what's out there, what's next. And in business, there's a lot of uncertainty. With COVID, there's been a lot of uncertainty, which leads to fear. And so now is the time to overcome that fear, overcome that uncertainty, and take the next step, to step out of your comfort zone. So, but we won't be able to give people the Creepy Clown Award outside of our staff.
Sorry, guys.
It's going to stay here for a while, right?
Unfortunately. Just kidding.
And it'll stay in your office for a very short time.
Very short. I'm already jotting down notes.
That's right.
Now.
But we were looking for a way to light it up even in a dark office so that you would be able to
Did that with the eyes. I could see exactly. Yeah.
That's right. He would be waiting there for you. So we have a very exciting guest coming up. Do you want to tell us who that's going to be?
Yeah. We have a roving entrepreneur. Her name's Michelle Fishburne.
Right. And she's traveling the country in her RV, interviewing strangers, interviewing entrepreneurs, but talking about ultimately the impact of COVID having on people from all over the country. And so I'm looking forward to interviewing her. Yeah,
I'm sure she's going to get amazing stories out of it. I mean, traveling obviously so far, and just all types of different people out there.
And
so
I'm hoping that she will agree to phone in from the road.
That'd be great. I want to see the RV.
Yeah, well, and also be like the roving reporter for Everybody's Business, reporting from the road.
That'd be great.
Here's Michelle Fishburne. So I'm looking forward to interviewing her, and I think she too has a story about stepping outside the comfort zone. So don't you go away. We have a great show in line for you, and you don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. Hi, this is Jerry Ross coming to you from the National Entrepreneur Center. I'm coming to you from my home office because our staff as well is working remotely. But we're working remotely to serve the small businesses in Central Florida. If you have a need, if you want to get connected, there are many ways to do that with the National Entrepreneur Center. So we are still answering your calls. We are still answering your email. In fact, we've been pretty busy these last few months, even working remotely to launch the new online learning platform in partnership with the Lonely Entrepreneur out of New York City, who had about 300 learning modules of content readily available. And we've made a partnership to make that available to you for free while you're working remote. So while you may be home working alone, you don't have to be alone, because the National Entrepreneur Center and our 14 resident organizations have one mission, and that's to help you grow your business. And welcome back to this episode of Everybody's Business, a podcast sponsored by the National Entrepreneur Center. We are welcoming you back to 2021. You can see we have a new set. We have a face-to-face interview for the first time because we've been doing Zoom interviews because of COVID. But 2021 is a new year, and we're glad you're with us. And we're excited today to have in the studio with us live Michelle Fishburne. Sometimes life turns you upside down, dumps you on the floor, and then asks you, so what are you going to do about that? That's what happened to Michelle in 2020. In January, she suddenly lost some of her hearing and most of her balance. In the COVID-19 spring, she lost her job as a National Director of Public Relations and Partnerships for an organization that she really loved. In June, her youngest graduated from high school, making Michelle an official empty nester. And at the end of July, the lease on her house ended. So Michelle packed up all of her stuff, moved it into storage because she didn't know where she was going to work. So buying or renting a house really didn't make sense. No home, no job, no kids underfoot, and that's what she didn't have. An RV, a camera, curiosity, and years of storytelling experience is what she did have. And we're really pleased to have her today to share some of those stories. Please welcome Michelle Fishburne.
Hey, Jerry, thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to talk about what I've been doing.
I can't wait to hear about it. We've been friends for quite a while,
yes,
but I've learned some stuff in reading your bio that what a year you've had.
What a year. And it absolutely brought me to my knees. I have to tell you that at the beginning of August, I was sitting by the ocean, which you would think it was a beautiful day.
Yes.
Very sunny. But I sat there and I thought, the best part of life is over. I was young. I had a great career in Washington, D.C., top of my profession as an international lawyer. And then I was able to be a mom and a homeschooler. And I just loved being a mom.
Right.
And as somebody who'd been out of the professional law for 20 years, I couldn't go back. And I thought, okay, so the future's just kind of gray. I'll just get a job. I won't have a career. It'll just be something to pay the bills. But the joy that I got out of life in the past, that's gone. And we have to just sort of accept that it's going to be kind of a boring life from here on out.
And that's pretty gloomy.
It was pretty gloomy. I sat there by the sea and I was like, okay, this is the way it is.
Well, sometimes you have to get knocked to the floor in order to realize it's time to get up.
That's fair.
And so I've been in that situation with a business where, and it's fascinating that I went to the ocean.
Did you?
I was drawn to the beach to say, what's it all about? And where do we go from here? So from that day, what changed? And then we're going to talk about what you're doing now, which is very exciting.
So what changed was that thought of scarcity. So what is scarce in my life? But what's abundant in my life? What do I have a lot of? And how could I make that interesting and joyful and maybe monetize it, which would be very nice too.
Very nice to pay the bills.
And I realized as you were reading in the beginning that I had an RV to live in.
Okay.
And I had
that's on the good bad scale. That's good.
That's good, right? I had a motorhome, and I had experienced living in the motorhome for an extended period. When I homeschooled my kids, I actually took them on the road caravanning with my parents, 2 RVs, all across the United States for 10 months.
What a great classroom.
It was a great classroom. And my kids will always remember that. And we had so much fun 10 months. We did another 4 months. And it was so the idea of taking the motorhome across the country in 2020 was very comfortable for me. I've done it before. Now there is COVID. But think about a motorhome. Everything you need is in there. It's just like having a house on wheels.
That's right.
So it's just as safe in a way as just being in a regular house. So I had the RV. I knew how to be all over the United States in it. I knew how to live in it. I'm curious and I love to write. And there were so many interesting stories, and here we roll into it, of how people were adapting in 2020. And I felt like I want to know those stories. And I thought I'll just get in the motorhome. I'll create a website called whowearenow.us. And I will go around and interview people about their 2020 experiences. And I took off on September 12th. And by the time I got to St. Louis, a radio station said, hey, we want to have you on because what you're doing is so different, so unusual, traveling in a motorhome all over the country during a pandemic and interviewing people about their lives.
This woman is fearless. This
woman is maybe a little crazy too, right? But I think everybody is interested in how other people are doing. Right. And so I leaned into something that was very current. And it's been really interesting and people have been extremely curious about it.
Well, and there's a couple things in that story, that when I talk to small business people, they can always list to me, the things that are going wrong or the things that didn't go right. And sometimes I have to say, that's true. And you've spent enough time on that. So let's spend some time on the things that you're doing right and the things that are going well. And so many times we never make it to that flip side of the coin, which made all the difference for you. Secondly, being able to look around to say, in this chaos that's going on, where do I fit? And what can I do that is productive? And so both of those things that you did, I think businesses, especially in this time, are looking to say, how do I do that? And so did you have someone that helped you along that path, or was that one of those that you just said, I got to do this?
It was totally me.
It was you pulling yourself up by your bootstraps.
Pulling myself up by my bootstraps.
That takes a lot of strength.
Well, but it was role modeled by my parents, who were basically rags to riches stories. And my father had his own company that he started in our basement. And he started in 1981. He was a defense contractor.
Okay.
And when Reagan came in, one of the first things he did was he struck the Black Project that my father's company was going to be relying on for most of their funding.
Got it.
And also interest rates, I think, were something crazy like 18% at the time.
They were.
And so here he was. The 18% didn't happen after he started his business. Like, obviously, the Cutting of the Black project happened after he started his business. He had already recruited people to work for him. He already had paychecks to cut, right? Tough times in our basement. And he couldn't find a bank to loan to him. And he went to bank after bank after bank. And finally, a small little bank, community bank, said, we're willing to believe in you. And so they did a second mortgage on our home. I was 16, which is a really delightful time to have a teenager. I don't know if you've ever.
You bet. You bet.
So my father was.
I'm sure you were wonderful.
Oh, it was a delight. So yeah, not what my parents would say. And so my father was starting his business in the basement. My mother was finishing her dissertation for her PhD. And I was 16.
Lots of things going on.
Right. So the thing is, my father, though, had a firm belief in himself.
Right.
And he knew he could do it. And my mom, as a woman who, she was valedictorian of her class, and she didn't get her college degree until I was in second grade. And then she went off and got her master's and her PhD. She became a vice president of an opinion research company. And then she started her own company.
So it doesn't sound like the apple falls far from the tree. You've had some great role models in entrepreneurship. So tell me what you're doing now.
So now I am traveling all over the United States in my motorhome.
With no mortgage.
With no mortgage. Nothing to tie me down except for my dog. And that's it. And it's boundless, because it's only limited by my imagination.
Wow.
And so I just travel wherever I want to go, and I interview people about how their 2020 experiences have been. And I've interviewed mayors and town council members and yoga instructors and a lot of entrepreneurs and nurses and educators, and everybody has a story about their life during the pandemic. And even people who think they don't have a story have a story.
Everybody has a story.
Everybody
if they're
has a
alive
story.
This year, they have a story.
They do.
So where are these stories that people can check them out?
So I built a website. Well, I didn't build it. I have a great entrepreneur friend, very entrepreneurial, who built the website, and it's called whowearenow.us.
And so if they search for Who We Are Now, they're going to find you.
If they search for whowearenow.us, Who We Are Now actually was a movie, apparently, in the not too recent past.
Oh, really?
So they have to do whowearenow.us and they can find us.
That's great. And they can hear these stories that you're collecting.
Well, an interesting point. They can read the stories and see the people. And I've been collecting audio of the interviews as well. So they will also be able to hear the stories as well.
It sounds like there might be a book or even a documentary in the future.
It could be. I think by the time March rolls around, I'll probably have 500 stories.
Wow.
And it's just of people of all walks of life.
Let's talk about some of those stories. We have entrepreneurs that listen. Lots of people listen that aren't entrepreneurs, but tell me about some of the entrepreneurs that you've met in your journey and some of their stories.
One of my favorite stories is about Maurice Lemus, who owns Casa Lemus Inn and Restaurant in Raton, New Mexico.
Raton, New Mexico.
Yes, which is a small town
that
I found, yes. That's on the I-25 corridor between Albuquerque and Denver.
Uh-huh.
And it's a little tourist town. And one of the main parts of the town is the railroad that goes through it on its way carrying Boy Scouts to Philmont every summer.
Okay.
And they have a scout museum. And the kids come off and the parents come off and they shop. When 2020 hit, the traffic, we really rely on the summer traffic. The Scout Museum closed down and the traffic just really petered out.
People weren't traveling
as much. So Maurice has this inn and restaurant. And back in the spring, when things were shutting down, he's a Guatemalan immigrant, and he collected his staff together and he said, we can either shut down or we can stay open. But it's up to you guys. If we stay open, we all need to do our very best to not expose ourselves to COVID, because if one of us gets sick, we're sunk.
Right.
And so he got a core team. Some people left, said, we're not, we're going to do something else.
That. Right.
So we got a core team, and they started doing takeout. It was only 12 a day, 12 meals a day. And he said, wow, that's just not going to work. So then he thought, what should I do now? So he built a drive-through window. and
we're
boom,
blowing this wall out.
Yeah, we're blowing this wall out. And he was back in business all of a sudden. And it was great. And they were doing fabulously. And then when he was allowed to have patio seating, he built a rooftop patio. And this is really clever. There was a carport, like, when you drive into a hotel, you go under a carport while you're checking in. Well, he had one of those for the inn. He turned that into a patio dining, and he did a big screen, and he put some music and stuff and videos to make it look like stuff is happening. And so he also went to the big brand hotels. They were they're giving you those little bag breakfasts.
Yes.
That nobody likes.
Right.
Let's face it. And so he said, look, tell them that I'll be serving breakfast. So he didn't ever serve breakfast before, at least not that I'm aware of. So he dropped lunch. He added breakfast. He changed up his menu 4 times this year. 4 times. And in addition, on January 1, New Mexico increased the minimum wage by 20%. So he had given, as of January 1, a 20% wage increase to everybody.
Right.
As of October, he was only down 19% for the year.
That's incredible. And that's the resilience that you see in the entrepreneurs across the country.
Yeah.
There are those stories across the country, but it is one of those things that as an entrepreneur, they do build up that resistance and that resilience to say, I am going to pick myself up by my bootstraps. So I want to hear more stories about that, but we're going to take a break just for a minute and hear from some of our sponsors. So don't you go away.
The National Entrepreneur Center in Orlando, Florida has been around since 2003 and today is home to 14 business support organizations who have a single mission: to help you grow your business. Through free business coaching, low-cost training, and valuable business connections, these 14 business support organizations assist thousands of entrepreneurs each year in starting, growing, and scaling their businesses. So why not visit the website at nationalec.org today, or give us a call at 407-420-4848 to discover how you might take your business to the next level. And by the way, the National Entrepreneur Center is funded entirely through local sponsors, which include Walt Disney World Resort, the University of Central Florida, the City of Orlando, and Orange County government, just to name a few. So let's get connected today and get growing. Check out our website at nationalec.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to Everybody's Business with Jerry Ross. I am your host, and the podcast is sponsored by the National Entrepreneur Center. But we have the good news of introducing today a new sponsor, and that is State Farm Insurance. State Farm has come to us and said, we want to help small businesses. We want to be a part of the action that's happening here. And so we welcome a new sponsor in State Farm, and we'll get you more information on that. But we are very glad to start this new year, 2021, with a new sponsor in State Farm. We're talking today to Michelle Fishburne, and we've heard a wonderful story about your journey and how you got started on this. And we just left with a great story about an entrepreneur. Do you have another one?
Oh, I've got a lot.
Okay.
So it's going to be really hard to choose, but
You got to choose.
We got to choose. Let's switch to Okmulgee, Oklahoma.
I'm not even going to attempt that. You have to give that one to me again.
Okmulgee, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Which is actually the capital of the Creek Nation.
Ah.
And so
I learn something new every day.
It's fun. That's what's so much fun about what I'm doing.
Yes.
I'm learning so much new every day from these wonderful people I meet all across the country.
I bet you do.
So in Okmulgee, there's a company called Covington Aircraft. And Aaron at Covington. They were very concerned about the health of their employees during COVID. And we were really hoping to keep employees on the plant facilities and have them not go off for lunch during their shifts.
Create the safety bubble.
The safety bubble. But they had an issue because they didn't have a cafeteria. So Aaron thought, this could be a win-win because I have a lot of friends who own restaurants and those restaurants are shut down.
They're struggling.
And the way he said it to me is, these are friends. These are neighbors. This is our community.
Right.
And he said, so I wanted to keep our employees safe, but I also wanted to help my friends, my neighbors.
Collaboration. What a concept.
So he called Heather over at Okmulgee Main Street and said, do you think you could round up some downtown restaurants, which usually don't have drive-throughs? So the downtown restaurants are the ones that have really been struggling.
Okay.
Your drive-through ones, the chains and everything, they do pretty well. They have been doing pretty well in 2020. Right. The downtowns have really been struggling. So can you help me connect with these restaurants? And she did. And so Covington Aircraft paid for lunch every single day for all of their employees.
Wow.
And it was such a win-win because none of the restaurants in Okmulgee downtown closed. And on top of it, it was going so well that Aaron reached out to his friends at banks, insurance companies, and said, hey, this is what we're doing. Can you guys do something like this? Doesn't need to be every day, but could you do like once a week and encourage your... So it was called the Covington Challenge, and it went around the town, and they saved their downtown.
That is an amazing story of really that partnership, that community building that I think COVID has brought about, that people say, we're in this together. And so we need to work through this together in a way that was a win-win for the restaurants and for the aircraft company.
Well, and the we're in this together brings me to Forest City, Arkansas.
Okay.
Okay, because they have a sign all over town that says, we're all in this together. That the local newspaper combined with Boar's Head Meats and all put together this sign. And the reason why it brings me to my next entrepreneur, his name is Randy, and he is an auto mechanic. And he's been there for 47 years.
47 years.
And he said, I never have met a customer because they're all friends.
Gotcha.
And he has been thriving during COVID. And this whole idea of I've never met a customer, they're all friends, is also Jimmy's story over in Dewey Beach, Delaware. He runs Woody's Grill, and they've been doing a gangbuster business. In fact, when I talked to Jimmy, he was a little embarrassed about how well they've been doing in 2020. But what's the secret sauce to his success? Because the restaurant across the corner went out of business. So the secret sauce to his success is what we're talking about community. When he bought Woody's Grill, however many years ago, he said, we'll never be closed. People will never have to say, gee, I wonder if Woody's is open today. And he invests in so many different community philanthropies, and he takes leadership in the community.
Right.
And everybody knows him. And so it's truly where the locals eat. And because he's been part of the community and he doesn't see a customer, he sees just friends, he's been very successful.
Well, and I think that's the key to any long-term success, is building those relationships. I tell people, if you make a sale, you make money one time. If you make a relationship, it can pay you for a lifetime. And so I think, especially during this time of separation and using technology and social distancing, that's what people are falling back on, is those relationships that they've built over the years, even with their clients, but also with their employees. And those employees of the aircraft company, those employees of the restaurant in New Mexico that said, we're going to work together through this and make this happen. It's all about those relationships. And that's what makes a small business successful, is building the relationships with your vendors, with your clients, and with your employees. So Michelle, give me one or two more.
Okay.
Because these are just fascinating stories that I'm sure our listeners are relating to.
Well, you were mentioning about moving to virtual and keeping community.
Right.
And so that reminds me of the story of Romy from Lawrenceville, New Jersey. She's a yoga instructor. And one of the first big concerns is, well, we can't all be in person.
Right.
And does this mean we're done? And there are all these famous yogis that you can go online already and do a subscription. And would people want to do online with the yoga instructors from this little small town? Or would their clients gravitate to somebody else that was already online?
Right. Well, and there's, especially with yoga, there's such a relationship with the instructor in the room together. So what did she do?
So they went ahead and went virtual. They had no choice. And the thing is that Romy integrates yoga philosophy and themes. So it's not just a matter of going and stretching or getting your poses. It's more soulful when she does it. And that was actually the key to her success.
Wow.
Because people were coming for that sense of connection, community, learning. And during COVID, originally it was so scary. Nobody knew if you could even touch something.
Right.
And people were housebound. And so what Romy would do is she'd open up the Zoom early so people could come in and talk to each other before it started.
Creating an online community.
And then she would also talk about themes and philosophy that would be relevant to help people. Once again, scarcity and abundance, for example. So what the scarcity is, you pretty much can't go outside right now. New Jersey locked down. What do you have that is abundant? So she would give them little lessons to help them make their way through this really scary time.
Right.
And then she, at the end of the stretching and all, she would leave it open again and people would find community.
So
and
not only serving the physical health, but the mental health as well.
I think the mental health became even more important.
Right.
And some of their prior customers who had moved out of town or moved to another part of the world were able to participate, and then they ended up getting
geographic
exactly.
boundaries
So
didn't
now
matter.
she's got an international yoga class.
Wow.
And that wouldn't have happened but for COVID.
That's right. That's right, because you wouldn't think of that.
And that I keep seeing that as I've toured the country, I keep seeing again and again where really good entrepreneurs are saying, I'm actually kind of like, we've got a new secret to the sauce now because we're going to do our brick and mortar, but we've also got this virtual element.
Right. And sometimes without the crisis, you don't have the time or you don't have the emphasis to go out and look for something different or look for something new. And so during this time of challenge, lots of people look around and say, I can't do it the way it was before. I've got to do something different. And that's innovation. And that's what entrepreneurs have to do to survive.
And speaking of innovation, last story.
Okay. Last one.
So this is for
before you start.
Yes.
Will you agree to call us from the road and check in with news stories and update us as you do that?
I absolutely would love to do that.
Okay, because we don't want to cut any of the stories because this is what we're about. We're about entrepreneurs finding a way to be successful regardless of those challenges.
And I would encourage your listeners and viewers to go to whowearenow.us. News stories are uploaded every other day, and a lot of them are entrepreneurs. And so you can get little nuggets from other people's experiences.
Oh, yeah. Everything I know, I learned from someone else.
Yeah.
And so I've also learned from you today. So I appreciate the time you being here. So share with me one more story.
Well, and so this last story is about a product or a service that can't go virtual. So what do you do when you can't go virtual in this world? So Nicole, who is an acute care nurse, who's been taking care of people with COVID. She is from Kentucky. She's been living in Virginia.
One of the medical
healthcare heroes.
Healthcare hero.
She and 3 of her partners, also healthcare workers, had decided last October 2019, that they were going to open a campground, a high-end glamping campground.
The kind my wife would like.
And they were going to open it in Kentucky, which is where Nicole's from. And so they were really excited and they were going, and then COVID hit. Ooh. And they had the zoning meeting to zone the campground.
Right.
That had to get put off, and it was finally virtual. But during that time that it got put off, they couldn't get a bank loan because they didn't have the right yet to build the campground.
So you have to have the zoning before you can get the loaning.
There you go. And then by the time they went for the loan, the bank said, no, you're the hospitality industry. We don't loan to hospitality right now, even though campgrounds have been booming and more than full.
Right.
And so then they decide, okay, we'll do a lease to own. Then the wildfires hit. Now, how does that happen to be a problem for a campground in Kentucky? Well, because their units were going to be teepees and container conversions. And the teepees were being made in Oregon.
Where
so
there was wildfires.
So not as if they already had not enough issues. The wildfires hit. And so now they didn't have the teepees on time and they couldn't get enough teepees. And then also with the COVID factory slowdowns, the container conversions, which are their tiny houses, also that got slowed down.
Wow.
So all of a sudden now they've got the lease to own, they've got the zoning, and
now they can't get the units in to house people.
Exactly.
In a campground.
Now, they've got a great business model, though, because this is in Williamston, Kentucky, which is the home of the one and only life-size version of Noah's Ark.
Yes.
Exactly. So, believe it or not, Williamston pre-COVID was getting 70,000 visitors a month to come see Noah's Ark.
Wow.
But they only have 2 motels. So they have an accommodations issue. And in 2021, mark your calendars, in the fall, 2021, they're doing a 40 days and 40 nights music series. So
do you bring your umbrella? You must bring your own umbrella for this event. So that's 2021.
That's 2021. So they know they've got a great model. They've just got to survive until they get there. So yes, bring your umbrellas or not, hopefully. And but they know they have a good model.
Right.
And they just have to survive.
So are they open?
So they did a soft opening in November, but then the COVID numbers went up and and Kentucky shut down and a 14-day quarantine. So actually on Nicole's last day of being an acute care nurse helping COVID patients, she and her team were having to call all of these people who had already booked.
Had made reservations.
And told them that they can't come. And so much uncertainty. But she has a great team and they're in it for the long haul because they know they've got a great role model. And of course, news of the vaccines gives us all hope.
That's right.
That we'll be able to get back to something closer to normal very soon. And by the time 40 Days and 40 Nights concert series hits at Noah's Ark next fall, they'll be full and they'll be way in the black.
Have you reserved your space for your RV yet?
So,
or will you be staying in one of the high-end glamping?
They don't take campground. They don't take campers. So
okay.
So yes, Jerry, in December, I'm going to be going to Williamston, Kentucky, and I'll be staying in the teepee one night and in the container conversion tiny house one night. And I'll be able to interview the entire team of the 4 amazing women who are making this happen while they're still helping us all with COVID, because they're all healthcare workers. And so that story will also be on the website, whowearenow.us, and that should be fascinating.
That's a great story, but it's also a typical story of an entrepreneur who encounters challenge after challenge after challenge and perseveres. And so part of the challenge for you as an entrepreneur is making it through those challenges and staying focused on where you're headed, keeping the goal in mind, but also staying in that process long enough to be successful. I tell a story sometimes of a person that came up with a soft drink called 5-Up and shared it with his friends, and they said, well, this is terrible. We hate this. And so he did 6-Up, and they said, it's a little better, but it's not great. So he quit. Right before 7-Up. And so you never know when it's going to turn the corner. So if you're out there struggling with what's happening this year, we as a nation have faced tough times before. We have shown grit in tough situations. And I believe we will come out of this year, the year of COVID, much stronger and much more focused on those things that are really important in the year 2021. So don't give up. Keep moving forward, because you never know when you're just one day away. And right now, we're just 1 minute away from coming back. Stay tuned.
The Nash Entrepreneur Center has made it easy for you to learn business principles from anywhere at any time with NEC Online. As a supplement to all the great resources at the Nash Entrepreneur Center, you now have free access to over 300 learning modules that you can access at any time. Thanks to the generous sponsorship of Wells Fargo and our partnership with The Lonely Entrepreneur, you can access this powerful online learning platform for free. Learn on your own time and at your own pace. Access product reviews and participate in weekly group coaching opportunities. Right now, the only thing missing is you. So check out our online learning platform today at nationalec.org. That's nationalec.org. Did I mention it's free?
And we're back with Michelle Fishburne, who's traveling the country, learning about people's stories during COVID 2020. You have stories. We have stories. We all have those stories. And today we're sharing those stories because you're not alone. We're in this together. And so, Michelle, we've talked about your travels and what you're doing, but now we want to talk about you.
Eek.
So pressure's on. Where'd you grow up?
Princeton, New Jersey.
Princeton, New Jersey. And so what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, this is so embarrassing. I wanted to be president of the United States.
That is not embarrassing.
And when I graduated from high school and I got a leadership award, when they introduced me, before they said my name, they said, we wouldn't be surprised if she was the first woman president of the United States, Michelle Fishburne. So that's what I wanted to be.
There's still time.
Well, I worked on a presidential campaign as a director in the communications department in the headquarters. Not so much.
Not so much.
Not for me. That's okay. Because sometimes, we think we're going to head in one direction and we try it out and we say, no, that's not really a good fit.
Right. And that's the beauty of trying things is as many things as I've tried. I found those things that I like to do. I found just as many of those things that I
don't
No,
like.
thank you. I don't want to do that.
Yep.
What were your hobbies or interests growing up? Did you play sports?
I did a lot of writing.
Yeah.
I did a lot of writing, which is, I guess, is what I'm continuing to do now. But I wrote poetry and short stories and plays, and I love the outdoors.
Yeah.
Did a lot of backpacking and hiking growing up, and so I think the passion is the outdoors.
It's not surprising that you're still traveling the country.
Yes, true.
Did you keep your old writing? Do you have journals from the past?
I did keep it. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And so you've got to go back and read those sometimes.
Yeah, it's painful, but I do.
It is. Were there any big aha moments growing up that you said, that's what I want to be, that's what I want to do?
Oh boy, this is another embarrassing.
That's why we're here, is to see how many
me.
times we can embarrass you.
So when I decided, this is so terrible, but this is how I guess a business person thinks, which is when I decided I wanted to be president of the United States, I thought, well, most people who run for president are from Congress or governors. So I went to the World Book Encyclopedias. This is dating me. I went to the World Book Encyclopedia in our living room, and I went to Congress, and I saw that most people who have been in Congress were lawyers. And I went, that's what I should be, as a lawyer. And I became a lawyer.
Yes, you did. And you dealt with international law.
International law for a decade in Washington, D.C.
And then decided, well, maybe being president isn't the thing I want to do.
That's right. And I had my first child, and the first month I went back to work. I did a lot of business trips, and I billed a lot of hours. And when I came home, my nanny said, oh, no, she likes it like this, not like that. And I thought, nobody is going to know my kid better than me. It's not worth it to me. And so I went ahead and transitioned out of Washington, D.C. and being an international lawyer flying all over the world to being a mom in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Which is one of the most important jobs in the world.
I loved it. And then I homeschooled my kids, which was so much fun, because when you're an international trade lawyer, you have to know a lot about an area that's about this big.
1 inch wide,
1
2
inch
miles
wide.
deep.
There you go. And when I became a homeschool mom, It was so much fun. And that's where that's when I realized what a curious person I am, is I wanted to learn about everything. And so we did, and we took off in the RV, and we spent 10 months going to national parks all over our country and in Canada. And I became like geologist, and I became a historian, and I became lots of things, right? Navigator,
a cartographer.
So I am a buffet person. Don't sit me down at a table for one meal. Give me a buffet and I am happy.
And you had a buffet of the country.
I did.
To
and a buffet of so much to learn about. I mean, did you know? Now you're going to see the homeschool geek.
I'm supposed to be the one asking the questions here.
Did you know that the current Rocky Mountains are the third iteration of the Rocky Mountains?
I did not.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
Because you go and you see them, you're like, oh.
So I'm storing that.
These are the one and only, but no, there were two before it.
I'm storing that for the next trivia
There
contest.
you go.
It is the third.
It's the third. The third iteration.
See, you learn something very special when you listen to everybody's business. Who were your role models? Who were your mentors?
It would have to be my dad.
Yeah.
My dad is a Renaissance man. He grew up, literally his house was 2 doors from the railroad tracks. And the other side was the Naval Yard in Charleston, South Carolina. He went on to become a rocket scientist. He saved the astronauts on Apollo 13.
No kidding.
He
now that's a story.
Now that's a story.
You betcha.
That's a great story. He started his own business. He was a poet, an author, children's books, adult short stories. He's done so much. He's a musician, and I really love the fact that we can go through this life and do so many different things.
That's right. Well, and when you live with someone like that, you think that's normal.
That's true.
And you think this is how everybody is exposed, and that's not true. Sometimes that
is not true.
It's not true.
Oh, I didn't.
not everybody has parents that are that curious and that engaged and involved in that many things. And so everybody's childhood that they grow up in, they look around and say, "This is what everyone is like," right?
That's true.
And it's not.
That's true.
Especially in entrepreneurial households, it is osmosis with the children. They pick up that feeling of uncertainty that goes with running a business and dealing with that as a family and as a household.
Uncertainty, I think, and belief in self.
Right.
That, hey, I have the experience and the skills and a good plan, and I just got to stick to this, even when things get bumpy.
Even when things get tough.
And then maybe it gets even more interesting. So my younger daughter's an inventor, a teen inventor. She spoke at the White House. Her inventions have been in the Smithsonian. They're going to be in the Smithsonian again in 2021.
Well, where is she? We need to get her in here.
So I learned from her as an inventor about reiterating. You never ever on a single path and just keep going, right? And so that's what I learned from my daughter, who's an inventor. You just keep reiterating. And once I learned about the engineering design process, I thought, this is life.
It is.
This is life. And if you have that plasticity, that flexibility, the adaptability, and you ground it in some pretty rational thought and being willing to say, oh, that was a mistake. And if you look actually forward to failure, because it's in that moment that you fail, that you make the next leap forward.
And
if you can do that, it's so joyful.
It's part of the learning process.
It is
to say, that didn't work. And I think I think it was Edison that said, I have never failed. I just found 1,000 ways it didn't work.
Exactly. And it's nice when you finally find that way, but
yes.
Right, I am not I think one of the reasons why I'm able to do what I do in terms of traveling in the RV all across the country and interviewing absolute strangers and reaching out to absolute strangers is I don't seem to have fear. I just wasn't born with it. I just have hope. And it has done great things for me.
Well, and I think it will continue to do those things. If you were able to meet one person from history and have a conversation, who would that be?
Oh my goodness, this is such a good segue because it's about fear.
Okay.
The person I would want to meet is an early world explorer who got on one of those tiny, tiny ships and went across the Atlantic with just wanting to explore and being confident that they would find something and that they would be
fall
safe.
off the end of the earth.
They wouldn't fall off the end of the earth. And I would ask them, the question I would ask them is, weren't you afraid? I just think that would be terrifying.
I think it would be. Without all of that knowledge we have today, they didn't have that.
They didn't have it.
They got on a wooden ship and took on the ocean. I have a hard enough time taking on the ocean, at Cocoa Beach, when those waves will knock me around. And yet to set sail with destination unknown and not really knowing where the end of the water was.
Well, and actually, I didn't plan it this way when I thought about that answer, but that's what an entrepreneur does.
They set sail.
They set sail into uncharted territory with a belief in self, a belief in their ship, and a belief in the ability to adapt and make it happen.
And by doing that over and over and over again, building that knowledge is how we progressed as a humankind.
That's true.
So interesting. That very interesting. I enjoyed thinking through that with you. Do you think they were afraid?
I bet you they weren't.
They were confident.
I think they were confident.
Today, when you look out at 2021 and what you're going to be doing, are you afraid?
No, I'm not afraid. I know that I've got a good head on my shoulders. I know that I have community that supports me. And I know that I'm resilient. And that's what I've been seeing in people all across the country. And so another reason why 2021 doesn't worry me is when I started off on this journey, I thought I was going to find people who've been brought to their knees and stayed on their knees. That is not what I found. I found people, no matter what was going on, they're resilient, they help each other, they're hopeful, and those who are on their knees, the communities see them. For the most part. Now, I don't want to sound too Pollyannish because there are people who are on their knees that the community doesn't see.
You bet.
But for the most part, communities are seeing them and saying, how can we help you?
That's right. And I think that is one of the things that COVID brought about very quickly, is people started to look around and say, how can I help? And so even the government has stepped in with money. But on the local side, like you said, some of your stories of people saying, how do we help our community? How do we keep our community alive? And so as we enter 2021, I'm hopeful, I'm confident, not only in the entrepreneurs, but in our country, and that we will come back bigger and stronger and more knowledgeable about what's really important.
And we're going to party. So that's one of the things I've been thinking about, because, we were, at least I was taught when I was in high school, that the 1920s, that people were so excited because the war was over.
Right.
No, they were so excited because there was no more Spanish flu.
They were not wearing masks anymore.
They were not wearing
and
masks
they were allowed
anymore.
to hug.
They could go get dresses. They could go drink. They could eat wherever they wanted to. So I think we are ready to just blow this thing out. We're going to have a roaring 1920s. 2020s.
We are going to have a roaring 2020s for sure.
Yeah.
Because we got started off really rough. Let me wrap things up.
Okay.
What is your favorite color?
Blue and yellow.
And so
I'm not choosing.
If you put those two together,
doing it. I'm not doing it.
I was going to say, if you put those two together, is that purple? Favorite movie?
Favorite movie.
Time is up.
Sorry.
All of them, right?
All of them.
Coffee or tea?
Oh, definitely coffee.
Extrovert or introvert?
Extrovert.
What's your favorite dinner? If you were going to have
seared ahi tuna.
Seared ahi tuna. Okay.
Yes.
Very specific.
Yes.
Favorite cartoon character?
Roadrunner.
Roadrunner.
And I saw a live Roadrunner for the first time when I was in Shamrock, Texas.
Did you
Texas
really?
on this trip, yep.
What, did they have an anvil that was falling on him? Did you see Wile E. Coyote?
I didn't see the coyote, just the Roadrunner.
Favorite time of year? What's your favorite season?
Summer, because I love being outside. And that's when I can go boating and hiking. And I have a boat in Chapel Hill and go water skiing and tubing and to the beach and to the mountains.
All of those outside sports.
Yes.
What do you like to do when you're not working?
Outside sports.
Outside sports. Okay. Would you rather give a speech or plan the event?
Definitely give the speech. I am.
Me too.
I'm not a detailed person. When they did my Myers-Briggs, I think I'm an ENTP. I'm the kind of person that once I figure out how things go together, I just want to give it to somebody else and then move on, because I do not like paying attention to detail at all.
For any long period of time.
Or even a short period of time.
Well,
probably.
and that could be a problem.
That could be a
driving
problem.
around America.
It is. I've had some coping mechanisms
There
to
you
deal
go.
with my issue about attention to detail.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
Beer. I'm a both person. So if you can have two colors, I can have two drinks.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair.
Well, thank you so much. I know that you're busy and I know you're traveling. Thank you so much for making time to drop in here at the National Entrepreneur Center and share your experience in travels with our listeners.
Jerry, this was so much fun, and I'll keep you guys informed of some of the outstanding entrepreneurs I meet as I go across the country in 2021.
You'll have to call in from the road, and
I will do that.
We'll put you on as our roving reporter.
There you go.
On entrepreneurship in America.
There we go.
Thanks again, and thank you for listening to this episode of Everybody's Business. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
If you have a business question that you would like to have answered, or if you would like to suggest a topic for discussion, we would love to hear from you. Just email Jerry at hello@nationalec.org. That is hello@nationalec.org.
And we're back. What an inspiring person to talk about being at that point where you're kind of saying, what do I do next? And to meet her today and all of the experiences she's had just in the short time that she's been traveling, very inspiring.
And to be so lively at the same time.
Truly, that you say, we do need to step outside our comfort zone. We do need to deal with those challenges. And this year has certainly taught us that. But also that there are challenges that are going to happen, and you can step through those. And some of the stories that she shared of people around the country, it's a inspiring story that I think entrepreneurs have experienced forever. You know, that's the entrepreneurial story of having an idea that maybe someone doesn't appreciate or they don't see it, but then knowing that along that journey there's going to be hardships. Right.
And so one of the things that I've just seen on my own when we're doing the Orange County grant reviews is we've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners that are looking for this kind of help and their own stories and what they've been dealing with. It's been a very big eye opener for sure.
Well, and I hate to use the term that's overused, was unprecedented, but it is unprecedented that we would shut down the entire economy, and that has affected every business in America in some way, but also all of those business owners and their employees. And so it has truly been a tough time. And so speaking with Michelle today was it was inspiring to hear of the resiliency of some of those entrepreneurs around the country.
One of the people that I actually spoke with, she had a very interesting story in the sense that she's been pivoting for a very long time. She was a nurse, and then she ended up getting cancer, beating the cancer, and then decided that she wanted to make cheesecake. She went into small business,
Wow.
which was great, and she loves it. And she's actually in the Paramore district, and found out that COVID happened, so she's struggling for that as well. But
I forget her name. The cheesecake. It's the Cheesecake Queen, maybe.
I forget exactly.
I forget the name. But
I mean, the way she described the cheesecakes made me want some. But again, this is the holidays talking to me, just saying come back. But no, I mean, she had a great story. But I mean, again, just everyone's pivoting, but they come out the other side. So.
They do, and this is not the first challenge that our country has faced,
or the last,
and so we will come through this, and we will come out stronger. But I do know that people are suffering from pivot exhaustion, and we don't know how long this is going to last. So if you're struggling out there, worrying about the challenges of your business, just remember, you don't have to be alone. You can connect with the National Entrepreneur Center at nationalec.org. That's National EC for Entrepreneur Center.org, and connect with coaching, with training, with telling your story, so that we can help you get the resources you need to grow bigger and better and stronger, even during a pandemic. And that will make us stronger for after we're done. But one thing you know for sure, you will always have everybody's business at your fingertip on our YouTube channel. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the show today. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next week. Same time, same channel, everybody's business.